Karma's influence on one's death. Introduction. According to Buddhist scriptures, on the third watch of the night of his enlightenment, the Buddha found the answer to transcend the cycle of birth, aging, illness, death, meaning to be liberated from samsara. The answer is to eradicate all defilements. Defilements refer to the afflictions of greed, anger, ignorance, etc. that pollute one's mind, causing one to transmigrate life after life, continually accumulating karma in each lifetime. Defilements, or karma, are the factors that trap beings in endless rebirths. They are the causes of suffering. To end suffering and samsara, one must eliminate all defilements. There is no other way. Also during the third watch of his enlightenment night, the Buddha attained insight into the Four Noble Truths, the truths of suffering, origin of suffering, cessation of suffering, and path leading to cessation of suffering. We can understand this to mean that no one is born into this life without some degree of discontent. There is more misery than joy in life for most people, hence the truth of suffering. But suffering does not arise without cause. To end suffering, one must identify the causal factors in order to abandon them. These factors are called the origin of suffering. When the causal factors are removed, one becomes liberated from suffering. This is cessation of suffering. The Buddha outlined the path of practice to eradicate the causal factors. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. See the correlation between virtue, concentration, wisdom and the Noble Eightfold Path in the book Heading Home by the same author. The Buddha had solved this difficult existential problem and laid out the equation. It is up to each individual being to personally apply the practice if one wishes to attain final emancipation. All humans undergo the life cycle of birth, aging, illness, death. The Buddha stated that these four great sufferings weigh heavily upon each person. In this article, we will only discuss the final misery of human life, death. Everyone must die, even the Buddha and his noble disciples. However, not all deaths are the same. There are those who pass gently and peacefully, like monks discarding their old tattered winter coats signaling the end of a meditation retreat, and there are those worldly people afraid of death struggling miserably in their last moments. Why is this so? A student of the Dharma would answer, it is due to the heaviness or lightness of one's karma. In this article, we will examine how karma affects one's death. Specifically what constitutes heavy karma versus light karma. 2. What is karma? Karma refers to all the thoughts, ideations, speech and actions that are recorded in one's memory. Whether good or evil thoughts, virtuous or wicked acts, kind or harsh speech, together with deep-rooted addictions and fetters accumulated from past lives, these follow one into the present life, bringing happiness or misery unto oneself and those around oneself. These are the old karma one carries, plus any new karma created presently. Karma comprises the factors that pollute the mind. In Buddhism, these are termed defilements. Where there are defilements, there is samsara. Karma, whether intentional or unintentional, remembered or forgotten, is stored in the memory of its creator. The Buddha taught that one creates karma and inherits the results of one's karma. Long-held karma gains potency to influence one's life. Those with heavy karma are people who previously committed wicked acts. Their minds are constantly tormented, restless, unable to find peace. Sometimes they suffer feelings of regret, remorse, and repentance over hidden past misdeeds. Then there are those who experience excruciating pain at the moment of death, unable to let go, due to their past profession of slaughtering and harming many people and animals. The piteous cries of their victims return to haunt them, stirring their consciousness into turmoil and horror as they leave this world. Their burdened minds get pulled down by heavy evil karma into the lower realms or evil destinations as termed in the suttas. Those with light karma are people whose good deeds outweigh the bad over their lifetimes. In short, the heaviness or lightness of one's karma determines the ease or difficulty of one's passing. 3. 4 types of karma that determine rebirth. There are 4 types of karma in Buddhism that influence one's future rebirth at the time of death: habitual karma, cumulative karma, weighty karma, and death threshold karma. A. Habitual karma. Science tells us that a normal human brain can record everything we do daily through thoughts, speech, and actions. Similarly, the Buddha explained that habitual karma refers to all our habitual volitional activities done by a body, speech, and mind that become imprinted in the storehouse consciousness. One will definitely inherit the results of the karma one created. Habitual karma has 2 categories: wholesome and unwholesome. Wholesome habitual karma, also called repetitive karma. These are the good or bad deeds repeatedly performed out of habit that one finds difficult to relinquish. Wholesome habitual karma constitutes the daily virtuous activities that contribute to communal and societal well-being, like doctors saving patients, teachers educating students, researchers inventing technologies that improve quality of life, etc. Regarding ethics, these are the filial children caring for elderly parents, the loyal spouses, parents sacrificing for children, volunteers helping the poor and unfortunate, spiritual practitioners visiting temples, attending Dharma classes, meditation retreats to reform their characters and habits by renouncing negative traits and engaging in charitable works, etc. Such meritorious deeds accumulated over time will gain strength, propelling one towards favorable rebirths in the human or heavenly realms after death. Unwholesome habitual karma, contrariwise, these are occupations that deliberately harm others, like butchers slaughtering animals, human traffickers, drug dealers, arms manufacturers profiting from weapons of destruction used in wars and violence. When habitual unwholesome karma becomes strong, it exerts even greater influence over one's consciousness at the time of death, pulling one down into the lower realms. B. Cumulative karma, also termed preserved karma. Good or bad deeds one has forgotten over time are still recorded in the storehouse consciousness. Though not as potent as habitual karma, when cumulative virtuous karma becomes sufficiently strong, it can manifest to assist one's life serendipitously. And when cumulative unwholesome deeds accumulate to substantial levels, they reinforce habitual unwholesome karma, bringing harm and misfortune. For example, a small unremembered act of kindness, like helping an elderly cross the road, giving some coins to a beggar, shooing one's cat away from a bird it is hunting, these tiny merits will gradually aggregate over time to help turn tides favorably. But minute unskillful acts like swatting flies and ants in one's home without concern for their lives, or unintentionally stepping on small insects while walking, these acts also silently accumulate, bringing potential harm. Hence, we should not disregard the consequences of cumulative karma. C. Weighty karma. This refers to exceptionally potent karma producing disproportionately greater results relative to other lesser karma. There are 2 types of weighty karma, wholesome and unwholesome. Unwholesome weighty karma. The Buddha listed 5 weighty unwholesome deeds that will immediately land one in hell after death, with no chance of reprieve. These are mavricide, patricide, killing an arhat, injuring a Buddha, and disrupting the harmony of the Sangha. Since there are no more arhats or Buddhas in our era, presently only the first 3 remain. Even if one had performed tremendous meritorious acts like generously supporting temples, casting Buddha statues, building bridges to help the poor, etc., still, killing one's mother or father or dividing the Sangha will result in instant hell rebirth after death. Wholesome weighty karma. There are 2 resultant effects of wholesome weighty karma. A. First, people who consistently engaged in major meritorious acts throughout their lives will immediately get reborn in a heavenly realm after death. B. The second effect is attainment of jhanic absorption concentration states. If one attains jhanic concentration at the point of dying, the power of this wholesome karma can lead to instant rebirth in the formless realms. Meanwhile, other lesser karma are overridden and do not come to fruition at this time. D. Death threshold karma. This potent karma is created right before death, strong enough to ripen first, superseding habitual and cumulative karma. For instance, 1 second before dying, if one's mind contains virtuous thoughts like perceiving the Buddha's image, recollecting one's favorite temple, listening to a sutta, reciting the Buddha's name, etc., then by the power of this last wholesome karma, one gets propelled towards rebirth in a fortunate realm immediately following one's last breath. Conversely, if ill will, anger and aversion fill one's mind in the final moments, this unwholesome death threshold karma can override one's habitual wholesome karma and pull one's consciousness down into the lower realms instantly after dying. However, cases exist where powerful habitual unwholesome karma reinforced by substantial cumulative unwholesome karma may overwhelm the presence of weak virtuous death threshold karma, routing one's dying consciousness towards unfortunate rebirths. Or strong habitual wholesome karma may surge up to redirect one's dying consciousness to a fortunate rebirth. Thus, it is difficult to predict precisely how one's death threshold karma will turn out. Therefore, we should strive to cultivate as much wholesome karma as possible while alive to prepare supporting conditions for our dying moments. Nowadays, when someone is about to die, their Buddhist family members often invite monks/nuns to come chant, give exhortations, and guide dying recollection/recitation of the Buddha's name. This helps the dying person recollect virtuous thoughts of the Buddha in their last moments, abandoning attachments to worldly relations. If wholesome death threshold karma arises enabling their minds to remain calm and composed, they will get reborn in a fortunate realm. Each person ultimately has to save themselves, the chanters merely assist. 4. 3 phases manifesting in the mind of the dying. According to elder monastics, a dying person's mind goes through 3 phases. First habitual karma surfaces, then karma signs appear, followed by destiny signs that determine place of rebirth. Habitual karma. The habitual karma that is strongest will appear in one's mind at the brink of death. This karma then propels one's consciousness towards rebirth. Karma signs, these are mental images associated with the surfacing habitual karma. If wholesome habits predominate, then blissful visions appear calming the dying person's mind, e.g., walking through blossoming gardens, listening to temple bells, reciting suttas, etc. Unwholesome karma conjures up ghoulish images instead, being obstructed by bloody pools, lost in dark eerie forests, attacked by roaring beasts who want to devour one's body, etc., throwing the dying person into turmoil and dread. We cannot know precisely what imagery is appearing in their minds. Generally, if one sees frightening visions, then terror shows on their face and one struggles resisting death. Serene visions accompanied by relaxed, glowing countenance signals a composed, gentle dying process of that person. Destiny signs then swiftly appear and latch onto the appropriate realms for one's next rebirth according to whether one's habitual karma is wholesome or unwholesome. For example, if wholesome habits predominate, the blissful karmic visions prepare one's dying consciousness for rebirth in the human or heavenly planes. In contrast, if one had frequently killed or harmed many beings when alive, then at the moment unwholesome habitual karma ripens, terrorizing karma visions may plunge one's mind into profound fright. Unwholesome destiny visions will then emerge, pulling one towards immediate rebirth into one of the 4 lower realms in the next life. It is crucial that the dying person be guided by the exhortations and recollection guidance of the people surrounding one at this moment. This can help anchor the dying person's mind onto the chanting, to regain clarity and composure for departure. When does karma ripen? We understand karma to include all volitional thinking, speech and actions, wholesome or unwholesome, stored in one's memory. These mental formations as cause will ripen into effects when conditions are right. In one's life, karma fruits multiple times, sometimes lightly, sometimes heavily, sometimes in this life itself, sometimes in future lives. There are 4 categories of karma, classified by when effects ripen. Karma ripens immediately in current life, created within one lifespan, inevitable fruition within same life. Karma ripens in subsequent life, fruition postponed to next rebirth after the present one. Indefinite karma, fruition from next life onwards until samsara ends. Ineffective karma, present life karma that lacks sufficient conditions to fruit becomes ineffective. Next life karma also can fail to fruition if lacking supportive causes and become ineffective. However, indefinite karma remains efficacious until samsara ceases. All beings have this store of indefinite karma following them endlessly. When circumstances allow, this karma ripens, bringing pleasant or painful results accordingly, even if events occurred eons ago over vast lifetimes. 6. Unwholesome and wholesome karma. While alive, it is hard to avoid generating karma. In fact, without karma we would not have taken rebirth as humans. Whether reborn in pleasant or miserable planes, it is still the fruition of karma we previously created that places us in one of these realms to undergo karmic results now. Fortunate human rebirths are due to our past wholesome karma. Unfortunate rebirths in woeful planes are due to our accumulation of mostly unwholesome karma via body, speech and mind. There are 10 types of unwholesome karma. 3. Unwholesome bodily karma. Killing, taking lives of humans, animals, or even tiny insects. Stealing, taking anything not freely offered by its owner. Includes cheating time, cheating claims for higher pay. Sexual misconduct, having affairs when married or in relationships, rape, incest, abnormal sexual behaviors harming self and others. Also, sadomasochism, deriving pleasure from inflicting pain. 4. Unwholesome verbal karma. Lying, deliberately deceiving others leading to harm, defamation, or danger. Slanderous speech, with intent to divide others. Harsh speech, offensive, coarse, hurtful language that insults and abuses others. Frivolous speech, flattering speech exalting oneself or engaging in worldly baseless chatter, lacking higher purpose. 3. Unwholesome mental karma. Greed, desire to acquire others' possessions. Hatred, wishing adversity, injury, or ruin upon enemies, delight at their misfortune. Wrong views, addictions addling the mind, making one heedless, disbelief in karma leading to unrestrained behaviors harming self and others. These 3 mental karma have not been translated into bodily/verbal deeds, but remained as thoughts. Hence greed, hatred and wrong views are termed the 3 mental, unwholesome karma. The opposite of the above 10 are the 10 wholesome karma. These are abstinence from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, slander, harsh speech, idle chatter, greed, hatred and wrong views. 7. Conclusion. We know that from beginningless time until now, no one has taken birth to live forever in this world. A human lifetime being exceedingly brief and limited within this vast universe. The longest human lifespan just exceeds 100 years. Despite some happiness, there is much suffering we have to endure. Who can go through life without generating karma? Generating karma means we have to undergo endless rebirths to undergo karmic results. To escape samsara, the Buddha taught that it is necessary to eradicate defilements, meaning to cleanse karma. But the karma we have accumulated over incalculable lifetimes is extremely tenacious. How can it be erased? According to Buddhism, beings can still cultivate to eliminate karma. The Buddha outlined 37 factors of enlightenment to help cut off defilements, which bind us in repetitive rebirth cycles. Let us particularly emphasize the Noble Eightfold Path. Depending on one's level, one can choose a suitable Dharma method listed in the Buddha's teachings to apply and practice. All practices still require integration of virtue, concentration, and wisdom. Virtue refers to living blamelessly without harmful behaviors that damage others, because harming others also harms oneself. It means avoiding the aforementioned 10 unwholesome courses of action. Fundamentally, be diligent in wholesome deeds, avoid unwholesome deeds. That translates as adhering to habitual wholesome karma while avoiding habitual unwholesome karma. Furthermore, the Buddha taught that one should keep the mind pure. This means to maintain loving kindness, goodwill equally towards all beings when interfacing with society, instead of making biased discriminations of good/bad, right/wrong. To achieve final fruitions, practitioners can rely on the Noble Eightfold Path outlined by the Buddha. Proper practice requires wisdom and discernment to differentiate right from wrong, i.e., recognizing what are wholesome versus unwholesome qualities. One then avoids wrongdoings by keeping verbal and bodily actions blameless according to right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Concurrently, one upholds mindfulness during sense impressions. When the 6 senses interact with sense objects, one sustains bare knowingness of phenomena without following mental elaborations. Not allowing past memories or imagined futures to trigger greed, anger, and confusion. All these constitute generators of unwholesome karma. Besides preserving virtue, practitioners also need to develop concentration power to temporarily suppress defilements from surfacing, abiding with stillness and purity of virtue. In that undistracted state, when random thoughts eventually arise, one quietly contemplates impersonally that conditioned phenomena appear then pass by themselves, arise then cease by themselves.